Hey guys, welcome back to the DrCliffAuD vlog. This is vlog number 122, and today I want to talk to you about some of the significant changes that have happened inside of the hearing aid industry over the past 30 plus years. But before I get into it, if you could do me a huge favor, click that like button and then make sure you are subscribed to the channel with notifications turned on so you never miss one of my newly released videos. With that out of the way, I really appreciate it. Now let's go ahead and get into the topic of today's video. So, every, several years, the Hearing Industries Association releases their MarkeTrak data. And so we just got the release of the updated MarkeTrak for 2022. And it's actually located on the Hearing Review website. And I will link this down in the description. We do not have the full details about this, but we have the main general summary of it. And I'm gonna get into some of the key points of this particular survey. Now, to help you understand this here, basically these surveys are sent out to hearing aid users and non-hearing aid users, and they basically reply with whatever information that they are asking for on these surveys. And so they're able to actually track what the consumer sentiment is out there when it comes to hearing treatment and hearing technology and all of that. So I think that it's going to be very interesting to kind of go through some of the updates to this over the course of the past 30 years. So the very first MarkeTrak survey that was done was back in 1989, and basically a survey was sent to 20,000 households, and I don't remember how many people responded to that. It was a lot, and we can actually go back and look and see how consumers or how individuals with hearing loss were viewing hearing aids and hearing treatment versus what they view right now, and I think that there's some very interesting information inside of that. So I'm going to go through some of the key points that the Hearing Review pointed out at the very beginning of this article that they have about the MarkeTrak 2022. So the first thing that they said is that satisfaction with hearing instruments was 58% back in 1989, and it has increased to 83% satisfaction here in 2022. So obviously that is a huge improvement in overall satisfaction. I have to surmise that to some degree this is due to better audiologic care as well as better hearing aid technology. And when you combine both of those components together, obviously you would have better satisfaction or better treatment outcomes. The second thing that they mention is that binaural ownership, this means hearing aids with both ears. If you have a hearing loss in two ears, you have a hearing aid in both ears as well, that it's binaural, was 38.8% back in 1989, and now it is 70% for individuals who are fit inside of a hearing clinic. So if you purchase devices online, a lot of people apparently are still purchasing devices over the counter or online, and they're only purchasing for one ear, which is not a good thing because we know that you get a significant improvement in hearing performance when you have hearing aids in two ears if you have a hearing loss in both ears. The third point that they make here is that in the first survey, third-party payment was 20%. We're talking insurance payment, was only 20%. And now it is increased to more than half of current owners at 54% report some assistance to cover the cost of hearing aids. So it looks like insurance and third-party payers have started to increase their coverage of hearing aids, at least inside of the United States here. And then the fourth point that they make here is that the average age of purchasers was 66.9 years old in 1989, and that has decreased by 6.9 years to 60 years of age today, with some exceptions related to buying channels. And then that's an interesting point here because individuals are starting to notice that they're having either difficulty earlier on, so they want to get treatment earlier on, or they're just like, you know what, I don't perceive there being a significant stigma surrounding hearing loss, so I'm just going to, whenever I start noticing my hearing difficulties, I'm going to go in and get some form of treatment. So that's an interesting point there. And then in 1989, the data suggested that people who wear hearing instruments were perceived to be less competent, less attractive, less youthful, and more disabled. And currently, hearing aid owners rarely or never feel embarrassed or rejected when wearing their hearing aids. So we know that socially, hearing aid usage is definitely considered as being more favorable now compared to what it used to be back 30 years ago. So it's nice to see that trend going in the more positive direction of people not viewing hearing loss as a disability, people not viewing hearing loss as something that they should be ashamed of. And then the last point that they made here before getting into the rest of it is that less than 1 in 5 reported that their doctor screened them for hearing loss in their first survey. Today, more than 52% of individuals discuss their hearing difficulties and are encouraged by their physician to seek out hearing aids. So that is a dramatic improvement from 20% up to 52% of individuals with hearing difficulty are actually being recommended to go and have a consultation for hearing aids. So that is probably leading to some of the higher adoption rates that we're seeing nowadays, which is fantastic. So physicians are getting on board with this as well. Now, even more interesting to me is the current hearing aid adoption rate. So the current hearing aid adoption rate for us now is around 38.4%. If you include cochlear implants with that, it is at 39.1%. Now, these percentages rival some of these other countries that actually completely cover the cost of hearing aids. So you can see that adoption of hearing treatment inside of the United States, even though hearing aids are not free, is substantially increasing as time goes on. And it'll be interesting to see when we get other data from European countries and other countries that have essentially free hearing aids provided to their citizens. It'll be interesting to compare this data at that time as well. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the average time waiting after noticing hearing difficulties. So one of the standard numbers that has been thrown around the profession is that from the time that people notice that they have hearing difficulty to the time that they actually seek out treatment for that hearing difficulty has been traditionally 7 years. So 7 years from the time you notice that you're having a problem to when you actually do something about it. And so with this particular MarkeTrak data, they're saying that this number of years that people are waiting has shifted from 6 years back in 2018 to only 4 years in 2022. So individuals are either noticing significantly more difficulty, or they're just saying, you know what, I'm gonna go in and treat this difficulty sooner rather than later. Because again, like the stigma surrounding hearing loss and getting hearing aids for that hearing loss is starting to go away, where people are just not noticing a stigma about it anymore. And I think that has a lot to do with it. Plus, I also think that there's, technological advancement with a lot of the cool things that hearing aids can do nowadays. I think people are more inclined to be like, hey, I want to be able to do those particular features, whether it's wireless connectivity, whether it's, doing, rechargeability or whatever with their hearing aids that is making those devices essentially cooler for them to use. Now, the next thing, which is interesting, I thought, was that first-time buyers. Now, 86% of personal sound amplifiers are first-time purchases. So when you think of personal sound amplifiers, this is basically, to me, everything that's outside of a traditional hearing aid that you would get. Now, a lot of this is probably going to change when over-the-counter hearing aids become an actual thing, but as of right now, they're basically not. Now, this means that only 14% of individuals purchase multiple sets of these PSAPs, or they're still at least on their first set of PSAPs. Now, contrast that with 51% of individuals who are using hearing aids are first-time hearing aid users. So there's a significantly larger portion of these individuals who are onto their second, third, fourth sets of devices. So people are definitely more inclined to get repeat hearing aids, and that potentially is due to the fact that over the course of time, your hearing loss is going to most likely get worse, and so PSAPs at some point become no longer effective for you, and you have to eventually transition into a hearing aid. And then after you transition into a traditional hearing aid, there are different step-ups that you can do in terms of the power capabilities of those devices to treat a more severe level of hearing loss. So that's not really a surprise at that point as well. The next thing that I found interesting was the hearing aid features. So when we look at the hearing aid features over the course of the past 5 years, when you look at some of the common features, you have volume control, which is at 72% of hearing aids have that. You have a program button, which is at 53%. Rechargeable hearing aids, which is at 52%. Directional microphones, essentially, on hearing aids is at 39%. Rechargeable batteries for hearing aids is at 35%. A telecoil is at 33%, and then a tinnitus masker is at 29%. So you can see that there are a variety of different features inside of these devices that are relatively common. I'm actually surprised that a lot of these percentages are that low. I would suspect that a lot of them being a lot higher than that. But you know, with having some invisible in the canal hearing aids that are still very, very popular, it's no surprise that that's going to be dragging a lot of these percentages down, because you just do not have a lot of these fancy features inside of those devices that go completely inside your ear canals. Now, the next thing I found very interesting was the wireless capabilities. And then if you look at the numbers, approximately 70% of hearing aids today have wireless capability, as compared to only 54% only 4 years ago. So we're starting to see that this whole wireless revolution is definitely still charging forward. I mean, when we started to see, you know, wireless technology come out, you know, the adoption with that was slow. It still had a lot of kinks, had a lot of issues. Now we're starting to see that the wireless features inside of hearing aids is getting substantially more robust and just better in general. And then we have the use of hearing aid apps. So this is something that I found to be really, really interesting inside of this survey. So it says that only 28% of hearing aid users were aware that they had an app, aware of the fact that they had an app that they could use on their smart device to interact with their hearing aids. And I found that to be quite crazy, actually, because when you think about the percentage of hearing aids that are dispensed, the vast majority are receiver in canal hearing aids. And a lot of the receiver in canal hearing aids dispensed nowadays have this wireless connectivity with a smart device for you to use an app that you can control your devices with. And to only have 28% of hearing aid users actually being aware that that feature exists is surprising to me, and it makes me think that hearing care professionals need to actually start educating their patients on what their capabilities are. Now, the other thing that I found that blew me away when it came to hearing aid apps is that 83% of individuals who were aware of and who used their hearing aid app were satisfied with that. And I'm like, wait, did I read that right? 83% are satisfied? Because when you look at the ratings for a lot of these apps that you will see inside of the App Store, inside of the Google Play Store for hearing aids, they all have like 1 and 2 stars. I mean, they're all like really rated horribly. And according to this survey data, only 3% of individuals are not satisfied with the performance of the apps. So what that tells me is that the vast majority of people who are submitting their ratings on the Google Play Store and the App Store are the people who are just not satisfied with it. I don't think that that is indicative of the broader public of hearing aid users who are using these hearing aid apps to control their hearing aids. It tells me that a lot of individuals think that that's a great feature and they love how it works. Now, there might be some kinks in them, but generally speaking, 83% satisfied, that is a hugely high satisfaction percentage compared to what I thought it was going to be. And then we have a PSAP satisfaction. So if you remember these personal sound amplifying devices, you know, just amplifiers basically that I was talking to you about a minute ago, looking at satisfaction rates for those, only 66% of individuals were satisfied with their personal sound amplification devices compared to 83% hearing aid satisfaction. So that is correct. Also, 83% of hearing aid users are satisfied with their hearing aids, and that is a significantly higher percentage than individuals who are satisfied with their PSAPs. And when you kind of look at it, individuals who are satisfied with PSAPs nowadays, so just these generic amplifiers, is higher than what they were with actual hearing aids back in the late 80s, which I find to be comical. It just shows you how technology, even from an amplifier standpoint, has become significantly better compared to what hearing aids used to be back in the day. And then the other thing here is that cochlear implant users, so I talk to a number of my patients about cochlear implants, because once you reach the point where hearing aids are no longer beneficial for you, the next step for you typically is to get a cochlear implant, which will significantly increase your ability to intelligibly understand speech. And what it's telling us here in this MarkeTrak data is that 90% of individuals who are using cochlear implants are satisfied with their cochlear implants. So in fact, that is even higher than the satisfaction rates for hearing aids. So a lot of individuals who are like, I don't know if I really want to go that route. You know, I'm nervous about the performance benefit compared to my hearing devices. I mean, this is really showing me right here that if you do qualify for a cochlear implant, there is a high probability that you will have a even a higher level of success with your cochlear implant than you would with your hearing aids, even if you are satisfied with your hearing aids. So that's really cool. Now, this whole section I'm actually going to put up on the screen here because I thought this was really important and really interesting. So the non-owners of hearing devices. So we've always been thinking about, okay, what are the reasons behind individuals who have hearing loss but don't want to get hearing aids? What are the reasons why they don't want to get hearing aids even though they could significantly benefit from hearing aids as a form of treatment? So the primary reasons for non-purchase of hearing aids, while we have seen owners embrace hearing technology at a faster pace in MarkeTrak 2022, the rationale of non-owners is little changed. The reasons continue to include that the need is not great enough, the time is not right, financial constraints, and or a negative experience with a professional. The leading experiences to motivate an individual are twofold: having insurance that will cover some or more of the cost, and a hearing test that shows the need for a hearing solution. Yet, even with total coverage, 19% of respondents would definitely not or probably not purchase a hearing aid. Non-owners continue to be impacted by stigma and have an outdated perception of hearing aids. So there's a lot to unpack here. So if we look here initially at the reasons that people continue not to pursue treatment, is that they feel like the need is not great enough. So, you know, either their hearing loss is only at a mild to moderate level, which could be the reason why individuals are not starting to pick up the use of these personal sound amplifiers at a higher rate or at a significantly higher rate based on what we would expect. And then the time is not right, whatever that means. That's basically just kicking the can down the road. They just don't feel like right now is a good time to treat their hearing loss. But usually that is a masker for another larger issue in an individual's life. Financial constraints, which can totally be legitimate. If you cannot afford to do hearing treatment, that would prevent you from doing hearing treatment. And then, and or a negative experience with a professional. So I totally understand this because there are a lot of individuals out there who are, I don't know, less than professional is what I would say. They are hearing aid sellers instead of actual hearing care professionals who are treating hearing loss, right? If that makes sense. So I'm not really surprised at a lot of the same reasons. The leading experiences to motivate an individual here is saying that, having insurance will cover some or more of the cost. So definitely cost, again, is a factor here. And if someone had the ability to get hearing treatment and have their insurance pay for it or have it at a lower cost, more people would absolutely adopt it. How many more? Who knows? I mean, at least a few percentage points more, I would assume. And then having a hearing test that shows the need for a hearing solution, which is why it is so important that if you perceive hearing difficulty or you know someone who perceives hearing difficulty, to actually encourage them to go in and get a hearing test, because that is one of the major factors that would motivate an individual to actually treat their hearing loss. And there are so many different benefits. I talk about it ad nauseum on my channel of actually treating your hearing loss and how that is a significant improvement in quality of life that's in store for whoever does so. And then this is definitely an interesting thing, is that, even if hearing aids were completely free, all right, they determined that 19% of respondents would definitely not or probably not purchase a hearing aid. So again, completely free. That means that in best case scenario, if you were to provide free hearing aids for an entire country, that adoption rates would go up to essentially 81%, right? And we're at what, 40 some percent at this point, almost 40% at this point. So the highest anyone could ever expect to get, at least in the United States, would be 81%. And then obviously you have to fill in that 40% difference in the middle, which is going to be related to a variety of different aspects in terms of stigma and just not understanding hearing treatment, and then potentially cost as well, right? So there's a lot of factors that go into that, but I really found that section to be interesting. The next part here is talking about satisfaction with hearing care professionals. So this is a big thing for me because I myself am a hearing care professional, right? And so for hearing aid users, 91% were satisfied with their hearing care professional. Now this is actually down by 3% from 7 years ago. 7 years ago, it was at 94% satisfaction. And so I guess just by me entering into the profession approximately 6 years ago, I single-handedly have dropped down that user satisfaction by 3%. So read into that what you will. But the other aspect here is for non-hearing aid users, 73% were satisfied with their hearing care professionals. So basically what that's saying is that potentially a big reason that certain individuals are not choosing to treat their hearing loss is because of a bad experience with a hearing care professional. And I use the word professional loosely because what I truly believe here is that they just went into a hearing aid dealer, someone who just cared about selling hearing aids instead of actually treating their hearing loss and the difficulties coming along with the hearing loss. And there is a very big difference. And I'm sure that you've noticed at some point in your life when you go into someone who actually cares about solving a problem for you versus going into someone who just wants to sell you something, there's a totally different context that comes along with that. And I would bet that you as well, if you are wearing hearing aids, the high likelihood is that you actually felt comfortable with the hearing care professional that you went in to see. So let's talk about the biggest takeaways from their conclusion that they had at the end of this article. And that is that consumers are changing their buying decisions and that there are still too few individuals who understand how treatment solutions can impact their quality of life, right? I mean, I think this is a really big thing here is that over the course of the last 30 plus years, consumers are changing. I mean, the individuals who were the candidates for hearing aids back then are different than the individuals who are candidates for hearing aids now. I mean, we all know that there are generational differences and that different, generations value different things when you look at it from a whole. And so it's nice to see the trending of the generations currently becoming much more accepting and much more knowledgeable about hearing treatment options and technology and all of that, because that is definitely having a positive impact. If we can continue to have better education, which is, again, another reason why I have my YouTube channels, because I think that you being a better informed consumer is just going to be better for you when it comes down to treating your hearing loss as well as generations who come after you. So I think that education is really the key here. And they really state it right there is that too few people understand hearing treatment and how it could substantially improve your quality of life. And so hopefully by you watching this channel that you understand the value of hearing treatment, and now hopefully you understand really how far we've come inside of the world of treating hearing loss. I mean, the hearing devices that we use nowadays are substantially better than the technology that we used 30 plus years ago. And I expect to see that over the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years that technology is going to be even substantially better at that point in time if we don't have some kind of magical cure for hearing loss in the form of stem cell or genetic therapy or molecular therapy, something like that, that can actually regrow damaged hair cells inside of the cochlea. But thank you guys for hanging in with me. This is probably a very long video. Thanks for sticking around. And I will get into, of course, a different topic next week. And as always, I'll see you next week.